struggle. At the same time, Black liberation cannot be won short of socialist revolution. In 2020, at the height of the Black Lives Matter protest, Bay Area FSP initiated San Francisco League Against Systemic Harm. It was a multiracial coalition to stop racist police violence on Black and Brown communities here in the city and to slash the San Francisco Police Department budget. In New York, comrades have been working with the Black working class leaders in demanding the city council to pass a bill for community control of the police and to stop repression and corruption of the New York Police Department. Last year, 2 FSP documents, a revolutionary call for Black reparations and which way forward for the Black liberation movement, were published to continue these timely conversations in the struggle for Black freedom. Before we begin the program, we will sing the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, written by James Weldon Johnson. Please stand if you are able, and if you are on Zoom, please mute your sound.
The lyrics are supposed to be video.
Oh, okay, that's still.
Yeah.
We are cueing the YouTube.
Great. To share with folks who started.
We are sharing the screen with folks at home. We're sharing now, and we're starting it.
The always dancing over the heaven, with the harmony beats of liberty. And rejoicing from the listening sky, let it down as the rolling sea. A song full of the faith of the darkness is all. Sing a song full of the hope that the sin has brought. Making the rising sun, for new day begun. Let us march on till victory it's won.
During the Black Lives Matter protests, I loved hearing young Black women activists do a call and response of former Black Panther Party member Assata Shakur's words from her autobiography. It is a duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. The US ruling class cannot accept the truth that the Black Panther Party arose out of the struggle for Black freedom. They couldn't handle the Black Panthers had an anti-capitalist ideology and that they were committed to fighting for socialism as a revolutionary combat party. I think 2 main ideas that connect with FSP's socialist feminist program are the women's question and the role of the Black revolutionary vanguard leadership. Jilchristina's museum not only has a beautiful mural on the outside, but inscribed are the many, many names of the women leaders doing the work, having done the work. Is Chaka Khan on there? Yes. Legendary Queen of Funk, I am everyone. Artist and singer Chaka Khan was a member of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party in 1969. She sold the newspaper and devoted much of her energy to the free breakfast program for children. The core of their organizing, from breakfast food programs to health clinics to radical education, from the night watch protection from terroristic police repression to raising and protecting children, their own and not their own, it was women of the Black Panther Party who held it down. They took the Panther 10-point program and turned it into reality, such as creating the People's Free Ambulance Service and the People's Free Medical Clinics, which offered medical care, including sickle cell anemia testing. And even after the assassinations led by the cops and COINTELPRO, incarcerations and long drawn out unjust political trials of leaders, the need for revolution is more evident and desperately needed today. Afeni Shakur, another former Black Panther Party member's son, Tupac, a legendary rapper, said, "They got money for war, but can't feed the poor." We cannot ignore the ethnic cleansing and genocide of the Palestinians, nor any native peoples on this planet no more. And so I'm done talking, but I am going to introduce our fabulous guests, ask some questions, and then give you all a chance to ask more questions to discuss. And then we'll do announcements, and we do have a raffle prize. So if you want to buy tickets today, $1 is for one ticket and $2.50 for 3 tickets. We have an awesome 2 mugs from the West Oakland Mural Project and a book from the Freedom Socialist Party on revolutionary integration. So it is an absolute honor to highlight and talk with 2 community-driven Black women who both live in Oakland and San Francisco, respectively, on the relevancy and revolutionary Black women leadership of the Black Panther Party women. I'd like to introduce first to you, Jilchristina, who is a founder and curator of West Oakland Mural Project. Born in 1966 in Chicago, Jilchristina Vest moved to San Francisco in 1986 and to Oakland in 1992. After completing her undergraduate and master's in the late 90s, Vest bought and renovated an 1870s Victorian in the historic West Oakland in 2000. 20 years later, she transformed it into the very first monument honoring the women of the Black Panther Party and opened the very first Black Panther Party museum on the first floor. This was named the West Oakland Mural Project. This project is about what Black people do, not what is done to them. In that, this project is focused on the accomplishments of the Black Panther Party, not the heinous actions of the US government, the FBI, or police departments across the United States. And please hold your applause until, thank you. Kristina Lee, a lifelong feminist and member of SEIU 1021 and a part of the Labor for Palestine group. She was raised in San Francisco and moved to Sacramento to begin her political science degree. She melded her passion for feminism and queer rights by volunteering for organizations that supported survivors of domestic violence and rape, as well as campaigning against the banning of gay marriage in California. She completed her degree in San Francisco, where she became a member of the Freedom Socialist Party and Radical Women, and has organized with the community for services for the homeless to rein in police abuses by San Francisco to divert SFPD funding to community services and take their weapons of war, and worked to rebuild a militant movement for reproductive justice in the face and aftermath of the overturn of Roe v. Wade, with the Reproductive Justice San Francisco and the National Mobilization for Reproductive Justice. So now we can clap. Okay. All right. So I'll be asking 5 questions, and you'll have about 2 minutes for closing remarks. But at this point, let's just go ahead and get into the first question. So starting with Jilchristina, please. What got you interested and excited about the women of the Black Panther Party?
So many things. One, thank you for having me. Thank you, thank you. And I love that it's Jilchristina and Kristina. Easy to remember.
Yes.
I was born and raised in Chicago, and I very luckily and gratefully was raised by family members to understand who the Panthers were at a very young age. So born the year of the Panthers in '66, I feel like my whole life's trajectory was written because I was born in '66.
Nice.
And I feel like I was meant to. I know I'm gonna get emotional. I know it's okay. I feel like the legacy of the Panthers is so important. My father raised us to understand that when you see the Panthers, you go towards them, you don't go away from them, that they're here to protect us, that they're in the community for a reason. And my sisters and I ate at the free breakfast program, and it just made me smile thinking, I wonder if Shaka Khan ever fed us. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be just amazing?
Tell me something.
I'm the youngest, and so I don't really remember. I don't have a memory of it. My sisters do. So from an early age, I was introduced to their form of revolution, which I think is very particular because I see them as moving from a place of love versus a place of anger or hate or revenge, which are also very valid.
Yeah.
Reasons to revolt, but the movement of love and the way that they came together was really powerful for me. Fast forward to moving to the Bay Area in Oakland, I worked for a nonprofit in downtown Oakland that had me going into different communities and learning the histories of those communities and the dominant culture, the dominant demographics, those types of things. This was in the mid-90s, and this was after I skipped over having Angela Davis as a professor.
Wow.
For 2 or 3 years at San Francisco State, where I got my bachelor's. So there was all these things that kind of happened along the way. And when I got to this nonprofit, Occur, if any of you are familiar, it's Oakland's Community Council for Urban Renewal. And when I got to West Oakland is when I discovered like the real life history of West Oakland and the Panthers' presence in that immediate community. And it was then that I decided that I wanted to live there, because I had already become so attached to the legacy of the Panthers that I thought if I lived where they lived, that maybe I would become one or something. You know, I wanted to walk the sidewalks where they walked, and I wanted to be in the homes where they were. And this is in the mid-90s. I tried to get all my friends to buy houses, and none of them did. But all of them helped me buy this house.
Wow.
And all of them helped me renovate this house. And 20 years later, when I said to my friends, I'm going to put a mural on the side of my house honoring the Black Panthers, and they're like, of course you were, Jill. So it has been a lifelong interest, adoration, and respect for Panthers.
Yes.
Okay,
Take question, Kristina.
okay, so, as the, daughter of a Black teacher,
Mhm.
and it's my mom's birthday, by the way, so. So I was always very interested in the civil rights movement, but always frustrated that I was not hearing about the women of those movements.
Mhm.
Like no shade, but like it was only Rosa Parks.
Mm.
And then they weren't even telling me that she was an organizer, that she, fought for reproductive justice, that she worked with the NAACP,
Mhm.
that she wasn't just tired, but that her arrest was planned
Mhm.
and organized, and she was trained.
Mhm.
And then I also, didn't really learn a lot about the Black Panther movement, which is just like bullshit because I'm from the Bay Area.
Mhm.
But as I got older, I realized that that was very intentional because the Panthers were effective. The
Mhm.
Panthers weren't just trying to create a better world for the Black folks in their community and to defend their community. They were trying to not only dismantle the structures that were oppressing them, but were creating models that showed, hey, working people can build what we need to take care of our own. to the extent that those free breakfast programs and self-defense and ambulances, like those were all models for things that the government was not doing for us, to the point that that was stuff that they ended up having to do and institute because these were community needs. And, you know, as I got older and, you know, in political science, studying Black political thought and getting to read some of the autobiographies of, you know, women of the Panthers, you know, I began to understand that, you know, what the reasons were for the programs that they were building. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to do this stuff for the community because it's nice. It is, I'm going to make these things for the community because these are the things that we need. And we need to make sure that we get them, you know, come hell or high water. And then I also learned that it wasn't just a bunch of like scary guys with guns, you know, and that I had been miseducated intentionally by the public school system because they don't want us learning about what our communities can do when we come together, talk about what we need, and then talk about how to make it happen in solidarity with other folks.
If I can just interject,
Oh, yeah.
I would like to, for all of us as revolutionaries, as activists, to stop being shocked by that.
Yeah.
Stop bringing that up as if we don't already know it. And one of the biggest messages that this project and things that I say is, it's the oppressor's job to teach me about oppression. And there's nothing shocking about that. There's nothing unusual about that. There's nothing new about that. And it's my job to teach myself about freedom. And once I know about freedom, it's then my job to teach somebody else about it. For us to continually ask the oppressor to teach us our history and to teach us how to get free is a fool's game that we really need to put down.
We can't dismantle the master's house with the master's
I have
tool.
no interest in, that's no interest. It's like, we know what they're doing. What they're doing is consistent and predictable and very successful. And they have no motivation to change it. And it frustrates me when we keep getting shocked by it. But anyway.
Absolutely.
No,
We're on
yeah.
Turtle Island. You know, this is Ramaytush Ohlone land. And that's one of the things that they wiped clean. Any remnants of like who we were, we could dig it up, 4,000 years of, you know, artifacts that were found in the city. But we have to acknowledge that from that is where we're trying to build this resistance, our remembering, you know, we were dismembered from who we are as a people. And so any amount of like cynicism or like, oh, we're all gonna die kind of thing, it's like, no, there's this next of us just continuing what we've got going. And the next question I wanted to ask, because it's so important to recognize the organizing that was done, what made it so successful for the Black Panthers in their program, because there is a success in that. I remember getting free lunch, I mean, during the 80s and 90s when I was a student, and I never knew where that came from other than, oh, the government really cares about us. It came from somewhere. And so learning about this breakfast program that you got, that hopefully Shaka Khan,
Right.
you know, fed you, but that energy, that community, what made it so successful that the Black Panthers did this? What do you guys think?
I think, like I mentioned before, the number one reason why it was successful was that it was done from a place of love. That they knew these people, our communities of all different communities, needed this help. And for me, what I've learned from the Panther women and the trajectory of the Panthers is, in the very beginning, when it was Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, and I'm no expert, I have this project that I've never claimed to be an expert and historian on the Panthers. But through conversation and listening to Panthers, looking at photographs and stuff like that, the first couple of years of the Panthers were with the berets and the leather jackets and the kids wearing the blue shirts and the black pants. And that quickly changed to just regular clothing, right? But that image that you were referencing, that image of the scary Black man with the gun and leather jacket and the darkened photographs was definitely used to distribute across the world to create this fear. I think that that's a big reason why a lot of people didn't know that there were so many women in the Panther Party, was because Black men were scarier than Black women. So they used the image of Black men, even though the Black women also had guns and the Black women also had leather jackets on, those types of things. But when they shifted that uniform, it seems to me that in that period of time of the Panthers is also when they shifted their focus from the man to the people. Because in the very, very beginning, they weren't necessarily being successful. They were being attacked repeatedly, jailed and killed, and their headquarters were being destroyed. And they realized, from my understanding, that, and that's where the expression survival pending revolution came from, they realized that their numbers weren't large enough, that they weren't fed well enough, that their medical care wasn't being taken care of, their minds weren't educated enough in order to survive a revolution, in order to win a revolution. So they paused that attack on the man, shifted their focus from the oppressor to the people, and said, you know what, we're gonna feed our people and get us strong. We're gonna get medical care to make sure everybody's healthy. We're gonna get schools open and educate ourselves to make sure we understand what revolution looks like from around the world. We're gonna study Maoism and Che Guevara and Fidel and all of these people, so that and we're gonna build coalition after coalition after coalition across the world. And we're gonna create this mass that's based in love, based on an educated mind, and then we will revolt. And that, to me, I don't know how 18 and 19-year-olds thought of what they thought of. The only thing I can imagine is that you're not jaded maybe when you're 18. You think you can accomplish anything that's under the sun, anything you can imagine. You've not been knocked down enough times to give up, I guess. I'm not really sure. But the motivating factor of taking care of the people, taking care of all poor and oppressed people, to me, and you're going to build a coalition with anybody and everybody who believes the same thing that you're going to believe, you're going to get help from every corner of the earth. And that's what they did get. A lot of people ask me, well, how did the Panthers pay for these schools and these properties and these foods? And from, again, my understanding for conversation, I say you had to be Black to be a Black Panther, but you didn't have to be Black to help the Black Panthers, and you didn't have to be Black to be helped by the Black Panthers. So that level of coalition building is why they were so successful.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing that I, really love about the Panthers and their politics was that they had like a keen understanding that capitalism was at the root of the racial oppression. And so because of that, they were like down with everybody that was willing to fight that. They worked with the Young Lords, they worked with the Young Patriots Party, and with my favorite thing is the immense allyship that they had with the disabled community with the 504 sit-in. And like this is, and like I was so mad that I didn't learn about this until, but again, I know why. I know why I didn't learn about this until the library decided it was time to have an exhibit about it. But this happened like not too far from here. Disabled folks wanted the so this was the 504 sit-in in 1977. It happened at the UN Plaza, and they wanted to get Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act signed. And so in order to do this, disabled activists occupied that building, and the Panthers made sure that they were fed. They were like going to Oakland and like, cooking up hot, delicious food and bringing it in and making sure that people were able to sustain this strike or this, and exactly. And then, and what I also really love is that, there was the, specific recruitment and training of Black women, because the Panthers knew that like, the women were the glue holding the community together, and therefore were also the glue holding the Panthers together. It's like they might not have been like front and center in all of the, all of the imagery, but, something I got to learn more about was how the artists who were putting together the pieces for the paper, did so much to just like elevate the image of Black women, to show that like, we are strong, we are beautiful, we are political, we are militant, and like that this is our power.
I think this history is so important because it helped to build other movements. The women's movement, it built the movement for disabilities to be enacted. I think one of the things that Huey P. Newton, he wrote a piece about women and queers and the importance of seeing, okay, well, if I'm, if I'm not, queer or woman, but who is the most oppressed in our society? And just this notion to ask the question, to say that we're not just going to be focused on our own folk. But I love with what you said, Jilchristina, that yes, as a Chicana, I cannot be a Black Panther Party, but I can work with the Black Panthers, or that getting fed by the Black Panthers. This is what made this not a Black nationalist movement. It was definitely about bringing in what Fred Hampton, we have a quote about him, but who started the Rainbow Coalition, I think in Chicago, about working with other folks. The next question I have is, how did the Black Panther Party's political collaborations, and this is something we were talking about, just help build a movement for liberation? Because this is something that we look to, is these quotes that the Black Panther parties give us. And one of the quotes that we have in our hall today is from Fred Hampton, who says, "We say you don't fight racism with racism. We're gonna fight racism with solidarity. We say you don't fight capitalism with Black capitalism. You fight capitalism with socialism." So more on that, please. Or not just on that, but anyway.
Oh, sure. So basically with the Panthers, it's the fusion of, racial solidarity, radical politics, and militance. And this inspired, similar organizations both within and outside of the US to fight against capitalism. And so the Freedom Socialist Party, like the book that we are raffling is Revolutionary Integration. And, a quote that I love from that is that fighting racism is a fatal dagger pointed at the heart of capitalist power. And so like, this is something that the Panthers definitely understood. And, there's more aspects to it that point out that, you need a politically radical leadership that's prepared to lead revolutionary work, that you need a developed revolutionary strategy and program, a well-organized and mass-based political party, and then, also alliance with labor and the radical movement. And, these were things that the Black Panther Party was doing. So the Freedom Socialist Party was founded in Seattle. And in Seattle, we also had Radical Women, which is, our autonomous women's organizing group. And the Black Panther Party, worked with Gloria Martin, who was, one of the leaders up there, on an armed, it was Aaron Dixon, and they had they called for a mass armed march on City Hall to protest a ordinance that was trying to say that the Panthers couldn't carry weapons. And, and like they built respect for one another to the point where when Radical Women was criticizing the Panthers for having the Pantherettes, they had Black Panther women, dress up as cheerleaders, which not only Radical Women, but also these women of the Black Panthers were protesting, they listened. And it's like, these are the kinds of criticisms that you can make of groups that you're working with when you trust one another and are trying to say like, hey, if we're all trying to build a revolutionary movement, we can't be treating each other like this.
Mhm.
And then the other part is just that they were the model for how, how you fight for the right to defend yourself.
Mhm.
And so when they were demanding that they were able to, be armed and carry their arms like everybody else, they were also fighting against spying and manipulation by the FBI.
Mhm.
And by putting that on blast, they were also, paving the road for all other revolutionary organizations to not be interfered with by, the powers that be.
Mhm.
And then they were also on the side of the Freedom Socialist Party when we had a member that was trying to get a donation back and then was trying to expose, like, oh, well, tell me who all the, we have to say who all the members of the party are. And, we weren't trying to do that because we got to protect our people.
Mhm.
And, the work that the Panthers were doing and fighting for their own rights, kind of paved the way for every other organization that is also trying to, keep their stuff
Right.
protected.
I think they also paved the way to have the government become very sophisticated and very practiced at how to make sure the Panthers never happened again. So where I think the Black Panther Party should be huge motivating factors in forming all movements today, there's a very particular reason why they aren't. Because from if you scan back from what I see, the Panthers were so incredibly successful in such a short period of time. They affected so many different people and linked so many different movements in a very short period of time that the government not only focused every moment of their attention, or the FBI, or whoever you want to call them, on destroying the Panthers in that moment in time, but then they also set into place multiple other systems to make sure that this phenomenon never happens again. And that, to me, I experience that so often today. And it's kind of like the opposite answer to your question, because yes, they have informed us, but the number of times that we've come across, oh, well, this organization is dealing with climate change, so we're not going to deal with racism. This organization is dealing with labor, so we're not going to deal with climate change. And all these movements have separated.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm working on. I don't want to deal with you. But it's just like, but we're all connected. Climate change is affecting the Black community, and the Black community is in the labor movement. The labor movement is also queer. But that division that was so powerful prior to the Panthers became even more solidified, I think, and even more powerful after the Panthers. Because I think that COINTELPRO, when they drew back and looked, they said, you know what, the deadliest thing that they were doing, the Panthers, were linking all of these communities together against us.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that these communities stay in their communities and stay focused and fixated on their own little worlds, and don't think, I don't have anything in common with you. In fact, you might be my enemy. I'm going to only work with people that look like me or sleep with the same people I sleep with or whatever. And it has such a long lasting effect where organizations don't trust each other. The other element that I think has influenced on that same tip was the level of informants and infiltrators, something that you just alluded to, that, in talking to one of the Panthers, and I think that they're still doing that today, where we don't necessarily even pay attention to it. But when you see an organization crumble before it even got off the ground, and you don't know why, you don't understand, well, what happened? We had such good intentions and it didn't work. And one of the Panther sisters said to me that by the end, it was so bad that there were informants in your neighborhood, there were informants at your job, there was informants in your family, there was informants in your house, there were informants in your bed. They were everywhere. So by the time the Panthers imploded in '82, nobody trusted anybody.
Right.
Nobody knew who anybody was anymore. Everybody was being turned and everybody was being threatened and families were being threatened. And I think that the FBI and the government learned at that time that's a very effective tactic. to prevent people from gaining momentum.
Absolutely. So as a Blackanese person, you know, when I heard the phrase, you know, yellow peril for Black power, like that was something that I found really exciting because it was like a fusion of my identities. But in just sort of revisiting that in preparation for our talk today, found out that the guy who thought that up was an informant. I was like low-key heartbroken,
Yeah.
but you know, but this kind of goes to show that, like, you know, it can't just be about, you know, like, oh, you know, this slogan, that slogan, this person, that person. It has to be about building building community ties so that we can be trusting with one another and working with one another.
Yeah. What's the foundation? What's the motivation? What's the end game?
Yeah.
And Jilchristina has, well, on YouTube, I found PBS, which is a public broadcasting channel, did a short documentary on women, the museum in Oakland, and you can find it on YouTube if you just put in women of the Black Panther Party, it'll pop up because there's hardly a lot of.
If you put in PBS
Yes.
NewsHour Mural Oakland,
Cool.
Cool.
And just seeing you talk with, I believe it was Erica Hudgens and
Cheryl Dawson.
tell me about more about like your interactions with them, because they supported you in this project, and I'm certain that they have a lot of stories about how it was in these after years. But I've seen her actually at a conference in like 2010 or something like that. But say a little bit more about just your interactions with them, and then there's another question about sexism of
So the West Oakland Mural Project was conceived during the rebellions of 2020. And it was my way of showing up in the rebellions. As many of us were, it was a very difficult time, most specifically for people living in Black bodies. COVID was killing us at record numbers. The police were wiling out. Trump was wiling out. The election was coming. We're in quarantine, shutdown. It was a lot going on, and the rebellions at the same time. And it was one of those things that something I've always said, that there's all different kinds of ways that you can show up in the revolution.
right.
Not everybody's going to show up in the same way. Not everybody's going to be on the front line, but every role is required. Every role is important. And, you know, I have a titanium hip. I'm older. I don't run as fast as I used to, you know, and I've got way more to lose if the police decide to catch a case with me. And so I didn't feel comfortable being in the rebellions.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that was a viable option for myself at the time. And I wanted to show up in some kind of way because I was suffering, because I had so much anger and so much grief. And through meditation and through asking my ancestors, the answer came to me that the way I was going to show up was to create Black joy. And when I realized, you know, or surround myself with Black joy. And then when I responded back to my prayers and meditation, I said, but this is the problem. I can't find any. I don't know where to go to find it. And the answer that came back to me was then create it. So it was a really powerful moment for me to try to understand what that looked like. What did Black joy look like to me? And it turned out it ended up looking like fierce Black women.
Yeah.
And I consider myself a fierce Black woman. And I wanted to see my fierceness reflected by my ancestors, by my mentors, by my elders, because during the rebellions, our thoroughfare in Oakland is Broadway. So that's where the rebellions were happening every night. And that's where the boards were on the shops, and that's where the murals were on the boards. And when I walked that street one afternoon, I saw that all the murals were depictions of Black and brown people who'd been killed by white people for being Black and brown. And always reminding people that lynching was not always done by the police. Lynching is done by mobs of white people.
Yes.
Ahmaud Arbery was not killed by the police, you know, Trayvon Martin, Emmett Till, right? So when I walked this 2.5 miles and I'm seeing all these beautiful murals, but I was so blown away and so filled with grief and sadness And I was like, so we're memorializing what they're doing to us and we're calling it protest. Make that make sense to me. How are we re-traumatizing ourselves by looking at all of these images as if they're our heroes or as if they're icons? And I thought to myself, I was walking home, what does any kid think when they're walking down the street and they say, Mommy, who's that? Mommy, who's that? Daddy, who's that? Killed by the police, killed by a mob of white people, killed by the police. And I'm a little Black girl and I'm like, well, all these people look like me. Am I gonna grow up and get killed by the police? Is this what I'm aspiring to be? And that's what unpacked for me. I was just like, what images are we showing ourselves? What images are we showing our children? So by the time I got home, I looked at my house and I said, I'm putting a mural on my house. And instead of memorializing what they're doing to us, I'm gonna honor what it is that we do for the world. Something that I can look up to and that's gonna make my shoulders go back versus something that frightens me or makes me sad and makes my shoulders bow, right?
Yes, yes.
So I bought the house because of the Panthers and their legacy there. And then we're in the middle of the rebellions. Remember how long it took for Breonna Taylor's name to come into play?
Yes.
Breonna Taylor was killed 2 months before George Floyd, but the invisibility of Black women is so real that it took months for her name to become a part of the lexicon of America, of the world. And so then I started thinking about, well, I know Panther women. I know Angela Davis. Erica Huggins has been in my community for quite some time. I don't know anything about them as Panthers. I know them as people, but why don't I know anything about Panther women?
Right.
And then it was like, oh, because they're invisible. So that's how the subject matter, I'm like, I'm gonna focus on the women of the Panther Party. I am not a Panther, even though I was fed by Shaka Khan once a child. That is
What's thinking of that?
That's hilarious. I can't wait to tell my sisters this. This is funny. So I'm not a Panther, so it's not my story to tell.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that if I was genuinely going to be honoring the Panther women, that it could not be an interpretation by me, that it had to be a representation by them. So Erica Huggins is the first person I contacted. She's the longest standing member in the Black Panther Party, longest standing woman and leader, maybe male or female, I think. I think she's longest standing member, period.
Wow.
And asked her permission, asked for her blessing, asked for her mentorship, asked for her guidance, and also asked if she could put a call out to her comrades and ask their permission as well. So that was a very long-winded answer to your question.
it's perfect.
In that then from June 2020 through the rest of the year and to date, I started getting phone calls from Panther women via Erica, and phone calls, are you that girl in Oakland? And I would be like, and this I was gonna say earlier, I said, oh, are you one of the former Panthers? And this one woman, Barbara Easley Cox, corrected me so fast. She said, honey, I am not a former anything. I will always be a Panther. I will die a Panther. So to this day, I never use the word former.
Okay.
They are Panthers.
Out of my
Till the end of time, they will be Panthers. And the beautiful conversations I had with them and the care that they took with me was really something that stood out, and telling me the stories of that time, but not giving me too much detail to wound me, to hurt me. And I was so moved by that, because they would tell me something and more than one of them would answer with, do you understand what I'm telling you? And I'd say, yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Do I need to give you more detail? No, ma'am, you do not. And that to me was so beautiful, because they're traumatized.
Yeah.
These elders hold a lot of trauma and a lot of brokenness and a lot of anger and a lot of fear and pride, right? But that came across to me. And I remember one woman said, we were laughing during the phone call and we cried during the phone call. And once we started laughing again, she said, some of these stories are funny and some of them are beautiful and some of them are downright scary. And those are the stories I'm not going to tell you. And I said, thank you for that. And, you know, a lot of the things that you see on the mural was at their direction. The names are there because they requested them. The image of motherhood is there because they requested that. These are 18, 19, 20-year-old baby women that are having children, raising children, taking care of children in the community while running from the police or running from the FBI all at the same time. So yes, a lot of beautiful conversations with them, and a lot of really, we did a lot of Zoom interviews and interviewed the women for the unveiling of the mural. And this was the first time that they'd been interviewed. It was the first time that their stories were being asked, and they're just like, it's been 50 years. Somebody's now asking me what I did in the Panthers. But how fluid the stories were and how they were right there at the surface. And like they'd been waiting quite some time to not only be honored, but to be seen, to be heard.
That's right. There are many, many names that are inscribed on the house. I can't wait to go see it.
There's probably about 350 by now.
You hear that?
And for those of you in here, I don't know if you can put an image of this on the screen, but so all of this white that you see, these are all names. It's alphabetical. And when the mural was done in June 2021, the names stopped right about here. So this is where you're going to end up with like the W's. Now, if you come to the mural tomorrow, the names are down to the side. So they're going to keep being added. This corner around here is still a blank blue wall. And I have probably about 25 more names in my phone. So it's a living mural, and the names will keep being added as the names come in to me, as people find out about the mural.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So what lessons can we learn from the women of the Black Panther Party? Like, how do they defy the sexism that was coming from outside and within the Black Panther Party? So
you know, they were, they knew that they were defying those expectations. But like, like Jilchristina said, it's like when you're doing something for love of your community, love of your people, like that's the kind of thing that gives you the power to do anything. It's like the community version of a mom whose kid is trapped under a car getting like the superhuman strength to lift the car off of them. Because, nobody raises you, or, actually, I'm not going to say that, but like, you don't necessarily like start your life thinking like, I'm going to, make a giant movement to, build the world that is needed to keep me and my people safe. You don't necessarily like grow up thinking, and although we should, that, I'm going to be the inspiration for programs, not just for my community, but for all the working class people. And, I have conversations with Nancy a lot about leadership, about like, and I think that was one of the first things that she asked me, like if I saw myself as a leader when I joined the FSP. And like, I, didn't necessarily see like what I had done, in the past and currently as leadership. But then, one day when I was, working with some folks on campus and we were selling buttons to try to raise money for, a campaign that we were doing, I was like, okay, well, but like I was talking to somebody, I was like, when does the real work start? And she's like, this is the real work, and like, knowing that it's that organizational stuff, that nitty gritty, the organizational stuff that is informed by our, political program, our knowledge that like we are doing something that's like righteous and that we need to do, that, really, you have to take that in and know that in order to do this work.
I again, I'm not an expert on the Black Panther Party, maybe stretch the imagination. I can only glean what I learned from conversations and what they have told me or what I've overheard. And I don't know that they survived sexism in the Black Panther Party. I will not romanticize that. Misogyny is powerful and real. and it was as real inside the party as it is everywhere else. And that came through in many of the conversations of, do I need to say more, Jill? No, you do not, ma'am. So I think it's important for us to not romanticize it in thinking that these women were superhuman and untouchable and defied all laws of sexism and misogyny. They did not. The main thing that I have learned from the Panther women is worry about yourself. Stop trying to pay attention to what everybody else is doing, and pay attention to what you're doing. What are you doing to make the community better? What are you doing that's revolutionary? What are you doing as an activist? And one of the women at one of the block parties that I had got on the mic and basically, from what in my memory, this is what she said. She's like, you can't wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to eradicate police brutality, because you're going to go to bed a failure every single night.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to dismantle white supremacy. No, you're not. You're actually not going to do that. But you can wake up tomorrow morning and say, I wonder if Nancy needs help today. I wonder if Miss Elnora needs something today. I wonder if the single mother that lives 2 blocks down wants me to grab her grocery list because I'm going to the grocery store. She's like, that's what you can do. That's a revolutionary, is when you, as your individual self, are finding someone to help. And it doesn't have to be, I'm going to help buy you a house. No, I'm going to help you pull your garbage cans out because I've noticed you've been struggling. And she said, if you find everybody here at this block party, everybody here in this room right now, if you go home and in your community, you find 2 people today to help, then that is what you need to do. And if you do that every single day, you're changing the world, because we're not being encouraged to do that. We're not being encouraged to look out for each other. It's survival of the individual in this capitalist world. And we need to think more survival of the tribe. And in my community, we know each other's phone numbers, we know each other's cars, we know each other's mother's names, all of that. We're all very pokey, looking out the curtains all the time and knowing what's going on. And we'll drop a dime on somebody in a minute. We don't call the police, we call each other and say, I've seen this guy walk around 3 times. Have you seen him before? You know, and then we'll come outside. But it's like we've built that community. And that is what that I have gleaned from talking to these women in the Panther Party, is being concerned about the person right next to you, not concerned about what's going on over there that you have no control over, right?
Yeah.
Me being concerned with the person next to me means that you're more likely to be concerned about the person next to you, next to you, next to you. And then all of a sudden we have an unbreakable bond in this room because we've just shown concern for each other. And the Panthers did that. You know, the other thing that I learned from them, and it's the last thing I'll say, was that there's a difference in the way that they were serving the community, and that they weren't going into the community and saying, you know what, you need Jordans. We're going to buy everybody Air Jordans because I see that you don't have any shoes, so we're going to get you Jordans. And then you drop off 100 pair of Jordans in this community, and the community is like, but this isn't what we need. We actually need help with our PG&E bill. We actually need help filling out job applications, right? And but I feel great because I gave you Jordans. Aren't I awesome? And that's what happens a lot of the times with organizations these days, or activists these days. And I use air quotes very intentionally. And that the Panthers said, we waited for the community to come to us and ask us what they needed, tell us what they needed, and then we did it. So if you're in Chicago, you might have parents asking you for coats. If you're in San Diego, you might have people asking you for backpacks or school books. You know, the free breakfast program was all across the nation. Free food program was across the nation. But some people had free coat programs because it's winter. Some people had free vector control, like in the South where it's humid. You might have free electrical, free plumbing, depending on what the community asked for is what the community got. It wasn't the Panthers designing it. It was the Panthers listening and then responding. And that goes back to one of your first questions as to why they were so successful, because they were listening. They weren't telling the people what they needed. They were asking the people, what can we do for you?
That's right. I think, you know, with the left movement, and I refer to the radical left movement, you know, I do think that there tends to be a prescription for something. This is what we got to start doing. But I mean, we're still living, as you said, like we are still living in a very individualistic, rugged, you know, environment where even on social media and the TikToks, and they talk about self-care and self, you know, righteousness and all that. But where does that go to? What are we doing with that? Like, so we think about community, we think about what is needed with each other, you know, and I go back to the quote from Asada Shakur about you know, loving and supporting each other, which is compassion. And really, like you say, like you're saying, like it's not just us telling you what what the Black community needs. So the documents that we put out on call for reparations and which way forward for the Black Lives Matter movement is a discussion. We were reiterating it with our own group. Like this is just what we say in the FSP. We want to have a discussion with the Black community and not just going in there and saying, we're here, we're gonna make everything all right. It's like, no, this is a feminism that is strictly what the women of the Black Panther Party were talking about is we each have our own struggles. We all come from, you know, varying different backgrounds, and we cannot just think of the past as something that's going to, well, it is going to guide us, but at the same time, what is the present? And you mentioned meditation, like it's so hard to kind of sit there and do nothing, but sometimes in the present, it's getting in that moment and saying, who's around us? Who can we look to that is you know, there to fight with us and not against us. So it is very difficult to hear that, yeah, there were informants and there's always, you know, adventuristic things that happen in rallies and people want to, you know, make it, you know, a very fanfare kind of thing. But it's like, no, we're doing the organizing and we want to work with people that agree with us. The rise of fascism has always been. It's never just a thing that happens at a rally. It's since 500 years, since the days of conquest and capitalism, it's here. So we have to keep building these movements to be working together. So how, you know, and just to end on just like the Black feminists today, the young Black feminists, I mean, I go back to that call and response that I could see it, you know, during the rebellions in Oakland and here in San Francisco of just calling, and it's emotional. It makes you like remember why you are here and doing this work. So how is this movement today kind of influencing us? I loved how you just said we have to bring out Black joy. We have to talk about, you know, it's not always just Black and brown men being shot. It's getting in there and like fighting for justice and doing that work. So what influences you both in today's 2024, which is, sheesh, we're here.
Well, it's, you know, it is like that connection to community elders and understanding, or just like reminding myself, like when I'm, you know, down on myself or I didn't do something in like quite the way that I needed to do it, that like I am not the first one doing this shit. And that like all of the work that I have done, from union work, you know, crisis counseling, you know, fighting police brutality, it's like I'm not doing any of that shit in a vacuum. And I am doing that. I am building on the work of the people that struggled and won before me. And that like, if a bunch of young folks who had like very strong ideas about what needed to be done for the community can create something that inspires people all over the world to this day, can do that, that if I, you know, can just like get over myself and be brave and do what needs doing, that like I can be that difference too. And that like it's not about being the Asada Shakur, the Angela Davis, the, you know, this, that, or the other. Like I can be one of those hundreds of names on the mural who is building something important, and I can make a difference for individual people in the community. And like, that is revolutionary, you know, and it's like, it is being like that, you know, snowflake that's part of the avalanche, although I don't like necessarily using that as the metaphor, but that's what just came out of my mouth. So we're going to go with that.
Works. For I don't know what Black feminists are doing. I know what I'm doing. I have to be very careful. I don't like to speak for people or that type of thing. But for me, the shift that has happened with this project felt like a shift to survive during the rebellions of 2020 and everything that was happening. All the images of Black death and Black trauma and, you know, George Floyd being murdered over and over and over and over again, to the point where we're just going to normalize photographing and filming killing people.
Right.
As if we're trying to make some different kind of point. And I got to a place where I was so dark and so despondent and relatively non-functioning is what it felt like, in a way that I had never felt before. And that's why I started meditating and why I started asking the ancestors. And because it was quiet, because it was COVID, because we were in lockdown, I was able to hear them. I think that we ask all the time for help, and then we're on to the next thing, and we're not sitting still long enough to hear what they tell us to do. And they just want us to be great. And I believe that with every cell of my being. They just want us to be great. And what I did to shift when I got that message of surrounding myself with Black joy is I can choose what to focus on, what reality to focus on. The reality of oppression of Black bodies is real. It exists. It's historic. It's everywhere. And I can choose to focus on it, or I can choose not to focus on it. And what I did with this project is actually, I'm going to shift, and I'm going to focus on the greatness of my people. I'm going to focus on the excellence and the beauty of my people, and the revolutionary and the liberators of my people, because that's also real. But the oppressor and the system of white supremacy is so successful. One of the most successful thing it has is it has the oppressed obsessed with their oppression. It has us completely fixated on what it's doing to us, causing us to forget to take a moment to understand, but I descend from revolutionaries. I descend from kings and queens. I descend from the inventors of everything.
Yes.
Why am I focused on Emmett Till? Emmett Till didn't even grow up old enough to accomplish anything. So why am I focused on him? Oh, it's because I'm focused on whiteness. Oh, it's because I'm centering white supremacy, which then keeps me in this spiral. And I'm just like this. I'm non-functioning. I'm not excellent. I'm not soaring. I'm not accomplishing. I'm simply existing, trying to stay breathing. But when I shift my focus on women and men that I look up to, women and men that I aspire to be, Toni Morrison or Shirley Chisholm or Bernard Rustin, then suddenly I'm like, oh, I have all these ideas. I have all this energy. I have all this desire to be great.
Yes.
Instead of, I'm just going to try to stay alive today and not get killed by the police. And that to me has been one of the most powerful lessons that I have learned from this project. Is me not focusing on oppression doesn't mean I'm denying that it exists. It doesn't mean I've buried my head in the sand. It doesn't mean any of those things. It exists. I'm very clear about that. And when I wake up in the morning, that's not what I'm going to think about.
Yeah.
When I go to bed at night, that's not what I'm going to think about. And when I'm in conversation with people at the museum, I'm not talking about COINTELPRO. I'm not talking about J. Edgar Hoover. I'm not talking about lynching victims. Why? Why would I do that? Why would I bring that energy into my heart? Why would I bring that energy into my house? And why am I just in this doom loop? And so you mentioned something, one of you mentioned something earlier. This project, when you come into the museum, it's again, not about what was done to the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
It's about what the Black Panther Party was doing.
Yes.
One history, real, very depressing, infuriating. One history that's very real is very inspiring and motivating and gives you hope. So.
Yes, yes, yes. That is, we all got ancestors, we all remember the struggle, but the resistance and the joy and where we come from is so important, especially as working class people, because, the capitalists have the power, but we have the love and we have that compassion, and, we should be having discussion. So, before we get into discussion, because I know folks in Zoomlandia and here want to ask some questions, I want to introduce Enrique to give us some fun pitch, because we're not a 501c3K. We're not a non-governmental, we are working class. Go ahead, Enrique from Zoomland.
Hello, hello, everyone. This is Enrique Fuentes, a member of the Freedom Socialist Party based out of Salinas here in Monterey County. Salinas is a rural community down south from the Bay Area, about 2 hours. The FSP is a working class feminist organization, and even though we do punch up above our weight, I have bad internet. Even though we do punch up above, we do need to keep the lights off full. I ask each of you,
Can you, I was
whether
gonna
on
say, can we interrupt him and let him know
Zoom
that
or
he's
in
not coming through
person, to
clearly?
open your
Enrique,
hearts and wallet so that we
Enrique, turn off your video so that
Okay,
yeah, starts. There you go. And start from the top.
and
And from the top.
Maybe
all right,
disconnect.
is that better?
Yeah.
Way better. Go from the top. Go ahead.
I apologize.
And now
Okay,
you're
that's-
muted.
Just keep
Freedom
talking. I think you're muted, but
Party.
I'm not sure if it's clear.
Now it's on.
Let me try.
Good, so.
Now,
Maybe log off and log back on. I don't know.
Yeah.
hey, hello?
Perfect. Yay. Go for it.
Probably we'll try that. Okay, is it working?
Yeah.
Shh. Sorry about that. Hello, comrades, supporters, and friends. My name is Enrique Fuentes, a member of the Freedom Socialist Party based out of Salinas in Monterey County. The FSP is a working class party that supports feminism and the struggle of oppressed people worldwide. But we also have to keep the lights on and the rent paid. I'd like to ask each of you, whether on Zoom or in person, to open your hearts and wallets so we can continue the fight against the capitalist bosses and politicians. Support the efforts to build a revolutionary feminist party that is led by the oppressed of the world. The Black Panthers embodied this struggle just as well. They were a group that demanded to be accepted, refused to assimilate, and presented themselves as leaders in revolution, and demonstrated that to communities around the nation, as we strive to do in the modern era. Band together and donate what you can. $5 is recommended and more is embraced. Solidarity, and let's learn from the Panthers. If you are on Zoom, put your donation into the chat. If you are in person, folks will be going around with baskets. We'll announce the total at the end of the program. Thank you for your generosity.
Yay. So we'll now begin discussion. If folks online, there is a function where you can raise your manos, and then here, if anyone wants to raise their hand and ask some questions, we'll go until about 1:40-ish. But yeah, I was gonna cry, but I'm not anymore. I will.
If it helps, I did a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you already know I did.
Because it's still very relevant, this history as it's present, the moment. So any thoughts? Some folks came in. Welcome. Don't be shy. In front, yes.
Thank you, Jill and Jilchristina. It was so important and so.
Kristina and Jilchristina.
Two of them. I think, when we started thinking about this Black History Month celebration, it really was the inspiration to know that 70% of the Black Panther Party were women. Somehow that just like created this big, huge explosion in our heads to say, why? I mean, it's not surprising, but why? There's so many stories. There's 300 and what all the names on the mural plus extended outwards. And as a socialist feminist party we started also, the Freedom Socialist Party also started in 1966. So it was kind of a good year for a lot of good things. You were born, so a lot of good things happening. And I think, again, a moment of time that is so important to say what was going on. And then also for us, it's like, well, okay, that was the past, but the past does come into the present as well it should, because we want to learn from the past, both successes, things that didn't work out, criticisms. When you were talking about, learning from our, the oppressors want us to be stuck on all the things that are bad that happened to us. And it reminded me of that, there's a reason why ethnic studies, women's studies, queer studies are all under attack, because it's about our histories, not just about the bad things that happened to us, but the resistance that has happened and that we have been successful. So I think so every time we see, any kinds of studies of working people's lives under attack, so important to stand up, because if we don't have that, then it just, the knowledge is just harder to find. And we want people to remember the lessons learned. I think the other thing that's so important, again, as a socialist feminist organization, the leadership of women, particularly the leadership of Black women, is so essential and key to any struggle. I mean, history has proven that. Again, we don't always get, the recognition, but we see all the things that both have all said in terms of the reality. And I think that's so important too, because it's not to say, oh, Black women, you're up there, you're the leaders. No, it's to listen, to learn, to say the interconnectedness, because we're not just this one identity. Most of us are multiple identities, and those multiple identities also it's stratified in terms. I'm Asian American. My coworkers, I'm not retired, but who were Black, we would say the exact same thing. I used to work at a law school, and people would hear it completely different. The treatment, I'm like, yeah, it's completely different. So my point just wanted to recognize that it's so important to uplift, to make known, to make very visible the contributions, and also for us to continue to build on those contributions as well.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Luma on Zoom land.
Wow, what a wonderful discussion. Jilchristina, I especially thank you for not sugarcoating the reality of Black Panther women. I mean, I think it just shows how desperately their lives needed a revolutionary program, that they hung in there and did so much good. I'm trying to understand your point about only, I may be misquoting, so that's why I'm trying to understand. Only Blacks can be Black Panthers, because I know there were Asian American, not lots, but Asian Americans, etc. And I think their program was so great, everybody should be a Black Panther. They had the revolution path. So can you just say, I'm trying to understand your point.
Absolutely, I can clarify. I would ask that if you're going to refer to Black people, that you say Black people and not Blacks.
Yes. Yes,
That's
thank
one
you.
thing, absolutely. So what I said was you had to be Black to be a Black Panther, but you did not have to be Black to help the Black Panthers. You did not have to be Black to be helped by the Black Panthers. So the diversity of people, organizations, adults, national and international, that were helping and supporting the Black Panther Party was everyone. They had allies in Northern Europe, Northern Africa, Cuba, all across the United States. People like Jane Fonda and Marlon Brando are two of the most famous allies. Whether or not you're an ally of a Black Panther doesn't necessarily make you a Black Panther. And it is respect for the Black community to not think that everybody should be a Black Panther, because not everybody is Black. So it's allowing the autonomy of the Black Panther Revolutionary Act to come together as Black people, as Black identified people, with no shame and no hiding. And with that Black identity front and center, say, we are going to help Black people. We are going to help oppressed people. We're going to help marginalized communities. We are going to help everybody. And we are Black, right? So it's not trying to create the Rainbow Coalition inside the Black Panther Party. It's trying to create a Rainbow Coalition inside America, I guess, for the lack of a better thing, right? To me, I think was so powerful in the whole Black Power movement was that it was not common prior to this time to refer to Black people as Black people.
Right.
It was Negro and colored and all of these things. So calling ourselves Black was a political movement, was very intentional and a part of that revolution. Say, actually, I'm going to identify myself. You're not going to identify me. You've been doing that since you dragged my ass here from Africa. You're not going to do it anymore. And I'm going to claim Black as a power. I'm going to claim Black as an identity with pride. And I'm not going to let you sully it, basically. So it's that kind of thing that, yes, when you look at photographs from the Oakland Community School in East Oakland, right? There were teachers of all different colors, and there were students from all different colors. But if you're an Asian American teacher at the Oakland Community School, you're not a Black Panther. You're a teacher at the school created by the Black Panther Party. And I think that respect is why they were so successful in coalition building, because it wasn't anybody coming in saying, well, I believe what you believe, I'm a Black Panther. No, you're not. You're an ally, and that's okay. But you're going to allow me my identity, and you're going to allow my space, and you're going to honor the way it is that I'm moving and not try to take it, not try to usurp it, not try to make it yours. You're going to honor what I have created and help me. That's an ally. So I hope that clears it up.
Others here? Go ahead, Nelly, and then there are some folks online, so go ahead,
And they
Nelly.
had their hand up in the back with the
Okay,
apron on.
okay, sorry. Nelly, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for this very, very terrific and thought-provoking discussion on the leadership legacy of Black Panther women. And I wanted to, am I loud enough? Okay. I turned out to be the quiet Asian American stereotype. Anyway, I also wanted to address the I think the issue of Black identity and what the Black Panther Party did, and especially towards the women of the Black Panther Party. And I've had a chance to work in the movement to defend the San Francisco 8 as a member of the Freedom Socialist Party, but also in allyship in the interracial political movements for radical social change, but I do remember and knew Richard Aoki. He might have pronounced his name Aoki, but he was Japanese American, and arm in arm with Huey Newton and the rest of the Black Panther men, the leaders in the Oakland party. And I don't think Richard himself, as a Japanese American, claimed that he was a Black Panther per se, but he was a member and joined initially and worked with Huey and the others. And one of the things that is so inspiring is that here Richard was Japanese American, but what connection did he have that he would be one of the leaders in the Black Panther Party in Oakland? And I think that it was not that he said he was Black, but he was Japanese American and understood the connections of what this capitalist system, economically, spiritually, racially, gender-wise, etc., how it also affected people of other marginalized, othered communities of color in particular. So when Richard was, before he died, what was really, really interesting was he called to meet me and Mural, a comrade, another Asian American comrade in the Freedom Sources Party. And he says, I got to give you these books. And there were books by Leon Trotsky and other revolutionaries, international revolutionaries. And the connection then I really made with Richard was because we're Asian Americans, and even with as Asian Americans, we have different identities. Asian American is not a term that say, oh, all you guys are alike, or you look alike, oh, you're all smart, you're all, you know, part of STEM, and you take away jobs from Blacks and Browns, etc. And that connection we had also then connected to what I wanted to do, and also to empower the working class to work together to fight the oppression and the racism and discrimination of Blacks, women, people of color, LGBTQ people, and especially through the building of our communities, of which the Black Panther Party was a huge, huge movement, and that we cannot deviate from what the Black Panther Party did, but also that the color line is there, and we have to face it as well as we do across the gender and economic lines, of which we as a people can work together to overthrow the oppression that needs to really to get rid of capitalism.
Yeah, they were serving all poor and oppressed people, all poor and oppressed people. Yeah.
Thank you. We have Val, Enrique, and Amy. So go ahead, Val, then Enrique, and Amy.
Okay, thank you very much for an inspiring program today. I really enjoyed it. I'm the branch organizer for the FSP in Los Angeles. I spent most of my career in Seattle, and want to mention that the support and relationship with the Black Panther Party in Seattle has lasted from the 1960s clear to the present. A particularly significant event was in the 1960s when, back when all of the murders, Fred Hampton and everybody were happening, the Black Panther parties had a little house with their headquarters in Seattle, and the word got out that the police were going to come and raid that night. The Panthers were sandbagged in there. They looked out the window, and noticed a large picket line outside the door. What are all these white women doing marching around in front of our hall or of our house? Our founders and Radical Women in the Freedom Socialist Party decided to go down there and defend them by simply getting in between them and the cops. It stopped the murder that could have happened in Seattle like it happened so many other places. And that cemented a relationship that has continued, for many, many decades. We've supported the Black Panther Party in their endeavors when they were still a party, and worked with their not former but forever members continuously. And they have supported us, our discrimination and First Amendment cases, took part in our forums, our press conferences, and we continued to work with them. It's really exciting to hear how your museum project is bringing the generations together so that we can continue to learn from and be inspired for the ongoing struggle that we still have against capitalism today.
Thank
you.
Enrique has left the chat. They're going to a pro-Palestine protest in the Salina, Monterey County area. So go ahead, Amy.
So much. I'm Amy. I work with the American Freedom Socialist Party here. I'm really so moved at the idea of keeping the legacy alive of the Black Panther Party, of Black Panther women, and of multiracial organizing. And that's everybody's job. That's all of our job. And, I was really struck, Jilchristina, when you said that, the Panthers acted out of love. And you also acknowledge that anger and grief and outrage are also very valid reasons to act. And, I think, on that personal level, we do have to look out for each other. We have to be exactly not calling the cops, but looking at what's happening out our own front doors. And it strikes me that the Black Panthers understood from the very most basic breakfast program to, healthcare and jobs program and freedom from jails to, an entirely new vision, economic and social vision for the entire world. The personal and the political, the revolutionary pervades all that. And I just also am really, struck by, as Kristina, said in a couple of different ways, when you take when you have the leadership of the people that are the most oppressed, to say it hopefully not rhetorically, the most kept down, who experience sexism, who experience, oppression or, harassment on the job, who experience the racism. When that is the vision that creates the leadership and that drives the demands and drives what the hell we need to do at this point in 2024, that's going to catch all of us. And that has to include Black women, as has been said. You don't need me to say that. That's our job, that's all of our job too, is to recognize that. And so, I've had the benefit of, I didn't have gray hair when I started in the Freedom Socialist Party, but I've been trained by women and men and all genders of multi-generation, multi-racial. And I've been checked when I've been, had the wrong ideas. I've been checked when I've, had misconceptions, and I've been trusted to be able to change. And I just think all of that really comes so much into focus today. We have to do all of that, and we have to be, looking out personally, and we have to be calling for literally a different economic system, a whole different set of priorities, a revolution. Not only, again, you made it very clear, not romanticizing what being a revolutionary means, but it's today, and it's a vision for tomorrow. So I wanted to just say that's, is crystallizing for me. And I wanted to ask you both, to me, it's not an accident that the Black Panthers, with the, understandably, or with the known, ways they didn't get it all right, whether that's sexism or whatever the case may be. Why do you think, I mean, this legacy would be alive today, whether we had this event. Even without the mural, the legacy is there. Thankfully, it's more viable, but the fact that it was 70% women, how do you think that shaped, again, it's a feminist issue, and everybody's gotta be a feminist, but having such an inclusive, 10-point program about healthcare, about, all these things, what's the connection there? It has to be, I don't think women are naturally better, naturally smarter, naturally dumb, or whatever, but women's material conditions. What is that, do you see the connection there, and how does it, what's your sentence, explanation about that? If there hadn't been 70% Black women in the Black Panther Party, it might have looked a lot different. I just want to
clarify that the accurate statistic is at the height of the Black Panthers membership, it was up to 70% women. So it didn't start off at 70%, it didn't end necessarily at 70%. At the height of their membership, when they had branches and chapters across the 48 different cities, I think, and it was explained to me, I think this was in the early 70s, might have been the height of their membership, that point it was 2/3 women. So that I just wanted to clarify that we're not, from 1966 to 1982, it was not predominantly women that entire time.
Can I just get maybe a few more guests, because there's some new folk here, and I want you to guys feel free to ask some questions. You have a nice beret. I'm talking to you. So we have about 5 minutes, and then I want to wrap it up with you both giving your final closing comments, 1-2 punch. So go ahead here, and then come on, speak up.
I'm currently a student teacher, and speak up. Yeah, and I'm learning more about how oppressive the school system is. And I'm just curious, how do y'all picture a non-oppressive school system? Maybe in the future, or what do you think that maybe teachers could do specifically to, because white supremacy is not addressed in schools for the most part. So I'm just curious about your thoughts about things that, I could do, teachers could do, or if we should be thinking bigger than that. Changing the whole system itself, because I'm not sure if it can be performed.
Okay.
Okay, so
Hold on. Oh, wrap it in your rings, and we'll do final closing comments, because you can. Go ahead, someone.
There's a question on
Ask. Okay, great. Hey, go ahead.
Not really a question. I just wanted to thank you for including that we should definitely include Black women in feminism when we're talking about feminism and that kind of thing. I think sometimes with allies, the intentions are there, they're noble intentions, but I think we forget that we need to let marginalized people have their identity. And I think that's the problem with modern day feminism. You have activists online, and they're raging to the acne and that kind of thing. And we're not really, realizing that kind of, or they're not really relating that kind of stuff. I think I'm happy that there are more talks of we need to include Black women and marginalized people in this thing. So I really thank you for answering the other comrade's question with you say allowing me to have my identity. I think that's really important, especially as I work in certain areas with people who are activists, but of a very when they think they're helping, it's just a little weird. But I really thank you for making that very clear that you can help, and it is a very important job to be helpful. But if you need to take a little bit more of a selfless approach and understand who you are helping and why we are.
Okay, we have one final comment here, and then we have to close discussion and give our speakers a chance to retort, if you will. Go ahead,
My small comment, not really much question, echo everything you said, because I was on that only one. I really love, as we talk about this intersectionality, right? As we get into intersectionality, you very, very, especially within these movements, see that borderline be crossed. It's like, well, I'm oppressed too, well, we're all oppressed, we're all queers, and I always like to say, I'm no longer looking for allies, I'm looking for accomplices, because I feel like that term has been so weighed down now by this performativeness or these identity politics in a way that you don't serve us. So I really just want to say thank you. I recorded it on my Instagram about saying why we claim the word Black, why it's such an identity and the power that's behind that word, because now in it as the intersectionality comes and people start weighing in their stuff and having all their different terms and their thoughts, they're starting to say, well, I don't identify as Black. I don't do this. I don't know what that means. And so I really thank you for that. And also again, just saying like, hey, we can all be aligned, but yeah, you're an ally, but hold on, sis, you're not me, and thank you for that. The last thing I wanted to talk about was I'm so sorry. It was one more thing. I'm rushing.
It'll come back.
It will. You talked about something I thought was very, very important. The lack of focus on Black oppression, right? We definitely need to move that conversation forward, right? The phones, the 5G, the 3G network was created by a Black man. The coils, we hear so much about oppression, about murder, and I talked to my peers about this within our queer community. Like right now, all I'm feeling is just the catastrophe, just so much of the negativity and the focus on what's going on, and not enough about but keep remembering, we fought this, we overcome this, I think that is a message that we need to echo moving forward, is that, okay, shit's bad, but we can get through this. Shit's bad, but we need to fight, let's go. So I just want to thank you, Kristina, thank you both, it was great, and yeah, thanks.
all right. So go ahead, Jilchristina, and then Kristina.
I don't know, that's always that. Yeah, to me, just because this is the last thing I heard, I will say that it is day by day, moment by moment of me retraining the way that my brain is going to think, because the indoctrination of white supremacy is so incredible and so multi-layered, so sophisticated that I'm choosing not to center it, but my brain goes to it by default all the time. So it's not something that I've accomplished and I'm just living this beautiful life. I am living a beautiful life, but I have to tell myself, nope, Jill, think about Shirley Chisholm. Think about a quote from Toni Morrison. Think about Assata Shakur, because the quickness with which my heart spirals when I think about what's being done to Black people in this country and the world. It is in a nanosecond, I am in a deep depression. And the depression I was in 2020 was one that I did not think I was going to come out of. And one that I was saying, this is not sustainable. I cannot keep thinking about these things and I have no control over them. And I'm just defeated all the time. So that day-to-day, moment by moment, minute by minute of retraining my brain to go to Black excellence versus Black trauma, Black accomplishments versus Black death. And again, it doesn't mean that those things aren't happening, and it doesn't mean that I'm turning a blind eye. I'm not. But when we get around our families and we get speaking for a Black family conversation, Thanksgiving or Christmas, a lot of the times what we're talking about is whiteness, white people, oppression, police violence at the dinner table. And a lot of it is because we're gaslit so often out in the world that we want to sit with people that are going to say, yeah, that was fucked up. You're not crazy. I understand the reason why we do it. And we need to section off a timer. We're gonna talk about white people for 15 minutes.
Love it.
For the rest of this holiday, we are only talking about Black beauty, Black excellence, Black liberation, Black education, Black history, all of those things. And let's talk about doing a food drive. Let's talk about doing a coat drive. Let's talk about the book you read this past month or something. Teach me something that you learned in your travels to, maybe you just got back from China, right? Teach me something, but we're in that loop and we can retrain ourselves out of it. The last thing that I'll say is something that I've learned about this project when I'm changing my focus and shifting my paradigm to, I'm not going to memorialize what they're doing to Black people. I'm going to honor what it is that Black people do. And what that also broke down to me was me thinking about, what does history actually mean? And for me, my understanding of history is supposed to be the study of what people did. It's not supposed to be the study of what was done to you. So slavery is European history. That's what Europeans did. That's not what we did. That's not my history. So that's when I start thinking about the Black Panther Party, COINTELPRO and J. Edgar Hoover. Again, that's the history of hate. That's the history of racism. That's the history of white supremacy. Free breakfast program is Black history.
Yeah.
You know, the free ambulance program, that's Black history. So it's again, trying to be as conscious and conscientious as possible of how I'm looking at history and how I'm educating myself and how I'm hoping that my education educates other people, or informs a conversation. I don't know. That's all.
Yes.
So, first of all, I just want to say it has been like a freaking honor to get to be up here with you, Jilchristina.
Thank you.
And I have really appreciated your framing of our Black History conversation because, you know, like we are here at the tail end of Black History Month. And then the friend who is a teacher over there, like my mom is a teacher, and I say is a teacher, even though she's been retired for like 10 years because you don't get to just stop being a teacher. It doesn't work like that. And, you know, with like, you know, little people coming into my life and then me feeling the urge to like, I need to get this baby some books, you know, and I think about like, what did my mom do for me? She got me books where I could see myself reflected, you know, so she got me books that told me about like the great things that Black women did and are doing. And so like the history that like I want like the little people in my life, you know, to know is like not just that we suffered, but that we fought. Not exactly, not just that we were oppressed, but that we organized. And that like, and that this is stuff that like wasn't just back then, but that has a through line to today that we're continuing to build on and like remind ourselves about, so that we can like keep learning those lessons, teaching those lessons, not making the same mistakes, making new ones, and then making things that are beautiful. I mean, like today is also, in addition to being my mom's birthday and our Kick-Ass Black History Month celebration, it's the Black Joy Parade today. You know, and like that was something that I found out about a couple of years ago. And then when I went, like I think I did cry because it was just like, you know, and like while Black excellence like sometimes will like kind of bother me in that like, you know, it's like we don't have to be excellent all the time always. Like that's a lot of you know, that's a lot of expectations. Like, but at the same time, like seeing, you know, people from, you know, HBCUs like being together, coming out looking fly and just like representing, like that means something. Seeing these women, seeing their names, hearing their names. And when I hear people, you know, saying, you know, say her name, but like not just because it's somebody who was murdered, but because it was somebody who did something incredible, you know, like that means something. And then when you get to like feel that in your bones and know you're connected to it, it's just something that can kind of keep you going when, you know, the world is telling you that you can't. And so like I am you know, grateful for this conversation. I am grateful for this museum, and I can't wait for a second field trip, because I did take some folks on a field trip. And so it'll be great to have like a more intentional.
Right. Thank you.
So another round of applause for Jilchristina Vest and Kristina Lee. Right. All right, just some quick community announcements. The fun pitch, I'm gonna add $20. So the total is $400.50. The next FSP meeting is Sunday, March 17th, 1 p.m. It's going to be on the author Angela Hume reads from her new book, Deep Care, the radical activist who provided abortions, defied the law, and fought to keep clinics open. Join us for a group tour of the West Oakland Mural Project and Black Panther Party Women Museum, Saturday, March 30th at noon. Sign up, put it in the chat if you're interested in the Bay Area, if you are here. And a tour led by Jilchristina. Thursday, March 7, 6:30 p.m. will be the National Mobilization for Reproductive Justice on Zoom. We're planning an action on Sunday, March 24th, in response to the Supreme Court, who will be hearing the case which could outlaw mifepristone, the abortion pill. There's also, which isn't on here, is March 8th on a Friday here in the city, International Women's Day. It will be a march of started by the Palestinian Feminist Collective, and would love for folks to come out and join us for that. We will now have I want to thank Amy and Janice who did the food, Nancy for coordinating the event, Kathy and Nick for helping with raffle and bar respectively. Thank you to the speakers. We're gonna have some lunch in a bit. Here is Nellie with the literature announcement, and please stay for the bookstore. But go ahead, Nellie, with the literature announcement. And then we'll have a raffle drawing, so get your raffles.
Anybody wants a raffle ticket?
Talk to me. You want me to?
Here at New Valencia Hall, we have a great.
Nellie, can you come over here?
Oh.
Come out.
Come other way around.
Go this way, Nellie. That's there.
You want me to sit there for a minute? Oh,
Just watch your, yeah.
Yes, right over here, just careful.
I am Nellie. I'm with the Freedom Socialist Party, and here at New Valencia Hall, which is the organizing headquarters. We also do fundraisers to support what we're doing, but the bookstore is rich with history, including the works and lives of African Americans and Black revolutionaries. And I hope that you'll be interested in checking out Revolutionary Integration, which is the theory of the Freedom Socialist Party for Black liberation from a socialist feminist perspective. And that is available here, as well as Which Way Forward for the Black Lives Matter movement by Kristina Lopez, who is a comrade in the Freedom Socialist Party. And A Revolutionary Call for Black Reparations by Emily Wu Yamazaki, another Asian American socialist feminist leader in the movement for radical social change. So please help check out the books and let me know if you'd like to buy one or two or three or four. And we have a sale of books for $2 to $5 today in honor of Black history. Thank you.
So we'll just have Kathy draw the raffle and then we'll, okay, some tickets are sold. This does end the portion of our wonderful program. Thank you all in Zoom land. You can keep watching or we'll see you soon in the next one.
Tell people to put a chat if they want to come on to the museum, and then we'll email them.
Yeah, if folks are in the Bay Area and would like to come to the March 30th tour, please put it in the chat and we'll get a hold of you after.